Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate. This is the League Two podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined by my regular guests, Matt Farley from the Stevenage Football Club podcast and Ben Jones of Tranmere Rovers. But we've got a special guest tonight, which is Si, who's a Colchester United supporter. Si, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time. Just talk to us about how you're feeling as a Colchester United supporter at the moment, because on paper you're very close to the relegation zone, and you might be a bit nervous. But actually, if you look at some of the football you played against Crewe Alexandra, if the fans are feeling nervous, the players certainly aren't feeling it on that evidence.
Yeah, so on paper, if only football's played on paper, we'd be doing so much better. And we have played well. We've been unfortunate to come away with one draws or 1-0 losses, sort of thing. The Crewe Alexandra game, I've got to wait till Saturday to see how we are against Salford, to see whether that was a fluke or if we have turned the corner, because Crewe were diabolical. I mean, they were poor. Whether we made them look poor or what, I'm the jury still out there a little bit, but I do feel that with teams around us suddenly picking up points, we are taking it very, very fine to the wire. It comes down to next Tuesday we play Crawley. That's the ultimate 6-pointer winner takes all, I think, from that game. Then you look at the Stevenage game that played recently East on Good Friday. We weren't overly great on that, but somehow managed to drag a draw out of them. So yeah, it depends what Colchester's team turns up, really.
What did you make of Colchester on Good Friday, Matt?
Yeah, very good, to be fair. I mean, I think going into the game, obviously, for us, we kind of looked at it and we thought, with the position we're in, the home games we want to be winning, because I think when we look at them, we look like they're winnable games on paper. But do you know what? They did really well, and look, they went 1-0 up in the game and had a couple of chances themselves. I remember when Timothy, our goalkeeper, had to make a save in the second half. So I think they were really good. And yeah, I mean, look, we were disappointed because it was a game where we wanted to win, and although a point's a point, and it's good to have it on the board. But I think from our consensus, we wanted to win, and I think as well. I think I said in our podcast, I think when you look at the league table and the teams down there, sometimes at this part of the season, it's not the greatest table to look at. It's the form table you want to look at, because I always feel that when you get to the running stage, right, there's just no point looking at the table, because you've got teams going for promotion who naturally play 10% better. You've got teams fighting for their lives who equally play
like Doncaster, for example, 13th, 14th. I would say currently Hartlepool are a better side, because. And I think it's because they're fighting for their safety. Like even Rochdale and teams like that. They seem to be sort of finding some momentum at this stage.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what I say. Look at the form table, because that's the table you want to look at in the running. So I think with a lot of those bottom sides, the form suggests that a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are doing generally well. When you look at Hartlepool, when you look at Colchester, who've got a few results on the board. So, even Hartlepool, I used the game we played against them Monday, was incredible. But, they're on a good run of form. So yeah, no, I thought Colchester's decent side. I think they'll stay up, to be fair, but I don't think they'll be in doubt of going down at all. I think my bottom two are Rochdale and Crawley. But yeah, I think they'll be fine, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming to you, Si, the appointment of Ben Garner kind of makes a lot of sense to me, because I think his strengths are in developing young players. We saw him do that really well at Swindon last season, especially in terms of the loan market. And what Colchester have got at the moment, to my eyes, is probably the best generation of young talent, whisper it perhaps, since maybe the mid-2010s.
Not far off. I think with the season we had, Spodix, Kent, came Vincent Young, and that lot coming through. Look at 2006, 17, 18, something.
I think that might have been a couple of years before. I think Kate. Yeah. Anyway,
they were pretty much on par. But I think the main drama we have is we've gone from Bloomfield to Garner, two very different managers and style. So the players having to adapt to it, and I feel it's going to be over the summer where we see what Ben Garner really does bring to the party. At the moment, I think he's just got to try and influence football any way he can to get results. give him the summer pre-season. You then start getting youngsters in position to play how he wants them to play. So it's like obviously got like Noah Chilvers, Junior Chamadou, players like that who have got to step up to the mark, because quite a lot of our senior players are either out of contract or looking at the end of their sort of career. So it'll be interesting how that gap is bridged next year, when some of the younger ones, like Chilvers, for example, will probably be counted as the senior player, even though his age obviously doesn't belie that in like age to say what Scouse is, for example.
Are you
very
almost,
interesting.
if I can just interrupt on Chilvers' side, are you almost more confident you'll keep hold of him for next season because he's maybe not had as eye-catching a season as maybe the one before?
He'll have a good end. He'll have a good run in. He normally has a good December. Wait for the January window to open. He normally does quite well towards the end of the season. Wait for the summer window to open. It seems sometimes looking for moves. But the other drama we do have is we have a loss of players in similar positions. So you've got Chilvers and Jay, for example. You can't, if you shoehorn into the team, one of them's got to drop deep, so you lose kind of a lot of their ability. So it does come down to, are we planning to keep him or are we actually planning to lose him? I personally think we're planning to see him go. There was rumours teams came in for him in January. The offers weren't good enough, so they were turned down. And I think bringing Matty Jay in, who can play number 10 box-to-box type player, almost is the backup.
Interesting.
For Chilvers to move on. So I'm not really too sure on that front. I think Tramadou's another one. A very good right wing. But his disciplinary record is probably going to let him down. He's got the second highest for cards and stuff in the league, which is good. At least we're at the top of one table. So we've got to take wins as when we can.
The thing I wonder about with Chamadou, Sai, is I think that it's the championship clubs mainly that are going to afford him. But I think in terms of what would be a good next step for him, I think it would be a club in the middle 8 bracket of League One, as opposed to a top end League One club or a championship club where the demands are going to be a little bit higher in terms of consistency and things like that.
I think realistically, Peterborough is the sort of club.
Yeah.
That we seem to sort of put a fair few players there. Obviously, Kennett went there. Sponix went there, didn't quite work out for him. He's obviously now Blackburn, really playing well for them. So I wouldn't be surprised. Chilvers is another one you could look at. I think actually Peterborough could go there. Puku went there from us. So we are becoming a little bit of a feeder club. The young players go up to Peterborough. Old players come down from Ipswich. It's kind of like this sort of weird triangle.
Do you know what, Si, actually? I was just going to ask, how are you finding Arthur Reed?
When he first arrived, I wasn't overly stuck on him, mainly because I felt like he's very big. Like he's got the wrong hair. He's like a Lego man that someone's put the wrong hair on.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. I think he took a while to find his feet with what he was doing, because Scouse had the whole midfield role. Then it was 2 or 3 others were getting pushed around. With Scouse been injured, Reed and Ashley have actually formed a decent partnership together. You're playing together, or one will start, one will come on, sort of, or vice versa. I think he's a player that needs game time and confidence, and needs to be loved, really. Now he's kind of getting that feeling. I think he's showing us the player he can be.
Yeah, he was. Look, Reedy was great for us. In all fairness, like Reedy joined. It was when did Reedy join? During COVID, that year when no one could go to the games. And he joined from Brentford, and we were all like, oh, he sounds like a good player. He's been great for 3 years. And actually, he was quite an important part this season, actually. He did play quite a handful of games for us. He featured in a lot of the league, scored a couple, featured in a few of the cups. Really good player. And I used to have the pleasure to chat to Reedy. So I remember Reedy when we had our pre-season tour in Jersey. And at the time, he hadn't... Again, I think with Reedy, it's about where his mindset's at. And I remember at the time, he hadn't signed a new contract, but he came on the pre-season tour. And it just so happened that we magically bumped into the team on a night out, and he was there. And maybe a few beers later, I said to Reedy, I was like, what's going on? And he basically said, it's all about location with me, and I just need to get somewhere where I feel a bit where I'm at home. So I'm hoping that he can do it with you guys. He was great for us, and I think it's quite a nice fit for him.
Yeah, he has said he feels at home and he feels wanted, which I do get the impression Steve Evans is quite a hard manager to to play for at times. If he likes you, likes you. If he doesn't, you're kind of a little bit out in the cold, so to speak. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping he does do well, because it's nice, but actually, like you say, to chat to, it sounds quite, not a man of few words, quite quiet. But it's interesting, like you say, how players go to different clubs. Like, obviously, Norris played well for you this season, scoring goals, and whatnot, but a lot of our fans didn't like him. So it's weird how players.
Well, it was after the injury, though, Si, wasn't it? Because before the injury, he was one of the best strikers in League Two.
I think he's one of the best strikers in the league, personally. I love the bloke.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? A bit of an unlucky sense. He broke his foot against you.
Yeah, I know. He broke his best tarsal, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
yes,
I spoke to him after the game. I was chatting with him. But he does a good turn. They're missing that pretty much open goal for us. So maybe he's still Colchester at heart.
We'll see. I mean, it's interesting listening to you both. That I feel like Colchester, Stevenage, and your side, Tranmere, Ben, they've all got certain, identities and certain sort of things you expect. And coming to Ben Garner from the outside looking in, it feels like Colchester. Historically, you think of this good academy, the investment in the academy setup, the development squad. It feels like it's all geared up, and maybe there's a cultural expectation from the fan base as well for the club to develop its own players. Do you feel like Ben Garner seems like quite a good fit for that from the outside?
Yeah, I think he's definitely a good fit. I mean, I was actually quite surprised when we played them because they were a bit more kind of compact and organised than I really expected. I think I had a quick look at the league table before we came on as well. And I think they've conceded the second fewest goals in the bottom half of the table, which, again, kind of surprised me because when you kind of say Ben Garner, I was kind of expecting, a very open team that was going to kind of score and concede a lot of goals, especially when you're at that end of the table. But, yeah, I think he's definitely the right type of bloke to bring players through, and he also seems to have sort of adapted his game as well to, his sort of managerial role to preventing a relegation, because they're a very difficult side to beat, as you can see. I don't think they've lost for quite a few games now, and I think that'll be enough to keep them up, because you're probably looking at them only needing sort of 6 or 7 more points with where they are. So yeah, I think they're definitely on the right track with all that.
What do you think about the organisation under Ben Garner, Si?
To be fair, it's not been too bad for us. Pretty much since Christmas, we've been a hard team to score against. We just have not been able to take our chances. There's some games, I swear to God, we could still be there. We could have 3 hours injury time. The other team could have gone home, and we still would not have found the back of the net. So it is kind of, I think it's a bit of a false position for us. If we'd have both ends of the pitch performed to the same standard, be much, much better off. And that's what I'm hoping Ben Garner's going to bring to the team. He's quite an attack-minded coach and manager that actually starts getting the forwards playing on the front foot, taking their chances and shooting. Defensively, we're okay. Mistakes get made at League 2 level. Sometimes teams capitalise, sometimes teams don't. So we've been quite lucky with how gone to a back three. That's worked really well with Chambers, Keller and Hall forming a good, solid back three.
Yeah, Connor Hall, I think, was a great signing, Si. I think Port Vale made a mistake letting him go.
It's been unbelievable. You look at some of the signings we've got this in January. It's like, why have they come to Colchester? And obviously, from a fan's point of view, you think every player wants to play for Colchester. But you look at, obviously, Hall's come from Port Vale. Matty J came from Caps of Exeter, took us to playoff final. You think, hang on, why have you come down? So there must be stuff brewing in the background that players are really buying into, that the young players coming through.
Is there a bit more investment as well, possibly?
To be fair to the chairman, he has put his money in his pocket because he gets a lot of criticism for being quite shrewd and only going internal, etc. So he has put his money in the pocket, but I think he's really been waiting for the right players to fit the right model with the right manager. Yes, that with Bloomfield up and leaving like he did upset that a little bit. Like everyone's already alluded to on here, Gardner coming in with his ability to bring on youth players, but also mould older players into a model he wants. I'm hoping it still keeps us sort of on the same track as what Bloomfield started.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I want to bring in Adam Davison, who's a Hartlepool fan, at some point, but I've got a couple of more questions on Colchester because I'm really curious about the situation. We've touched on Robbie Cowling there, Si, and I suppose you would have to look at it and say he's gone external with the appointment of the head coach in Ben Garner. This is a really highly rated coach. This is someone who's had relative success at this level before. You've also got put in the investment in January to bring those players you mentioned, like Matt Jay, especially in Con Hall. And you've also appointed a sporting director in Dimitri Halajko. Now, I think maybe the jury is still out on him, but certainly the appointment of a sporting director, someone with no previous connections to the club to run the day-to-day operations, those are 3 positive steps from Cowling, aren't they?
I think so. Now, I'm probably one of the few Colu fans that actually doesn't mind Cowling. Yes, at times it seems to run like a business. At times the footballing, especially during COVID, the footballing side did take a bit of a hit. But he went down the route of, I want to protect the club. So there is a club, and then the footballing side can sort of follow suit. And it's almost reset upstairs. And this January was the first window we saw all the upstairs workings meshed together to produce a decent window. Dimitri speaks very well when you talk to him. He's got his ideas in place. He grew up in Colchester, so he does know sort of town and the area. He went to school with my brother-in-law of all people. So yeah, it's been. But
that's where he got his good ideas from.
Yeah, not but yeah, so that's where I think a lot of people are still very undecided, because we've had one window, but it's still down the bottom. If we can get, in a perfect world, if we can go from where we are now to Stevenage next season, everything that's come together will have shown it's worked. But on paper, we've got a good squad. Defensively, we're not bad. We've got some very good attacking players, some very positive young players coming through. So if anything, it's a club that people should want to be at, and a club that should be doing well. It's now getting all these shoulds, ifs, buts, and maybes in the right order to click into place, and then next season start the right foot and off we go. Because we can't spend yet another season saying, "Oh, on paper, we've spent this, we've done this," but we're still having to go to Crawley to get results to try and stay in the Football League.
Mm-hmm.
And make no bounds about it, if we go down, we're going to struggle to come back up. Sure. National League is a very, very difficult league now. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just finally from me side, do you think there'll be a bit of scope to sort of overhaul the squad in the summer? You've mentioned some of the experienced players being out of contract. So is there going to be some leeway for Hajalko and Garner to recruit some of the types of players that they want?
There should be. Cowling's already turned out and said there's going to be a budget for the summer. He's going to, support the manager in the transfer window. The only thing I do worry about is if a lot of our senior players do go or do retire, is it upsets the apple cart a little bit too much. Mm. 1 or 2 go, 1 or 2 come in. We had quite a big January where like 6 players came in. So it's that happy medium between we need to replace, but I don't think we need to overhaul completely, because all you can do then is start back to basics.
Yeah.
Ground zero again, and then you don't know what you've got or what you're going with. So I think sadly, I think Scooter will leave. I'm a massive fan of his, but I think he's going to call it a day. But then we've got Reed and Ashley can sit in those positions. Chilvers potentially goes. Again, not a massive role. We've got Matt J. So it's then a case of bringing understudies in or bringing lads up from the under-23s to replace them. I think when we stay up, 80% of the team we've got now could be next season Stevenage. Just get that final icing. And I keep saying it, Matt, but obviously what happened to you guys last year, what you are now, it's an amazing transformation. It really is.
Oh, thank you. Oh, mate, it means a lot, honestly. My God, we still pinch ourselves every week, mate, honestly.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to see, but certainly a great academy in place at Colchester and probably the right manager. So hopefully you're moving on the right track. Si, thanks so much for your time. All the best to Collie for the rest of the season and beyond.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, cheers, Si.
Cheers. Bye.
bringing in Adam Davison from HUFC Chat of Hartlepool United. How are you, Adam?
I'm not too bad. Thank you very much. Yourself?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Good to see you. Just talk to us about how you're feeling about Pool's survival chances at the moment.
Good. Very good. I mean, the signing of John Askey it's been refreshing. So refreshing. A manager who's come in and immediately had success. He's stamped his identity, his plans. You can now see his style. Everyone's buying into what he's trying to do. And he's getting tuned out to players who we thought would have been out the door in the summer. So it's been a good it's been a good month and a bit under John.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. I mean, Hartlepool gave Stevenage a great game and got a very valuable point in that one. What you were obviously up there at Victoria Park. What did you make of them?
God, what a game of football! Oh my word! Like honestly, God's honest. I think I said to you, Gab, the other night on the phone. That was honestly one of the best games of football I've seen in a long time. What a game! Oh my God!
Forget Liverpool, Arsenal.
Yeah, well, it was similar in some regard. I mean, 1 minute they miss a sit, and then we miss a sit, and then they miss a sit, and then we miss it. It was literally like back and forth, and then the ending was just madness when Pidge, our captain, made the mistake, and that Josh, you're right, squared the ball, and the guy had the open goal. We were like, oh no. And he just missed the ball. Like, oh my God. And then in the last second, we've gone up the other end and we thought Organ had won it. And their left back cleared it off the line. And we were like, no. Oh, what a game of football. It was class. Do you know what? So I think before the game, we said we'd be happy with a point because I think for us, out of the fixtures that we've got left, I think Mansfield away and Hartlepool away, probably two of the toughest.
I said that to you a few weeks ago, I think, Matt. I said Hartlepool away is actually going to be one of those sort of banana skin type games.
Yeah, look, they've got a new manager, they've hit form. Again, I say it all the time, I said it earlier, don't look at the league table in the last 10, look at the form table. It catches you out. We've been there ourselves. We were there last year, so look, we know how it is. Like, so yeah, look, no, they've had a great turn under Askey, and I've been rooting for Hartlepool to do it. Actually, I really like coming up to watch Stevenage play. I think they've got a good supporter base. A few friends I know who support Hartlepool, so I think they'll be fine. I really do. I think the big game for them is against Crawley. I think that's the one. If they win that game, I think they'll do it. Yeah, wow. I tell you what was quite evident actually, and I think when we went up there on Monday, like our game plan was to kill the game a little bit. So get ahead in the game, maybe get a second, which we didn't do in the end, but to kill the game. And I was really happy what we did the first half. Danny Rose got a really, really good goal, got on the score sheet, and we went into half time and we were really happy with that. We thought, right, we've got ahead, killed the game. And what they did really well is they come out, they got an early goal, and it was like the fans got behind them then. Do you know what I mean? And it was your typical, I don't know what Adam thinks, but it was your typical League Two game. It rained, it was windy, it was horrible.
Oh, I love it. Get me there.
Yeah, no, literally, it was that type of game. But I think Hartlepool have to do that to stay up. They have to make the games like that, intense, horrible. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it'll be fun. What a game of football! I tell you, when we got back to the car, we were buzzing that we got a point. A lot of our fans back home they were a little bit like, "Oh, for God's sake!" But we at the game thought it was a great point for us. So, yeah, no, cracking game. Yeah.
What was your reflection on it, Adam?
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree. I mean, the first half, I thought, yeah, here we go. To be one of those games, they'll get one goal, they'll kick on, then it'll just be, one of those games that'll just see us by. But no, like we said, we got an early goal and we kicked on. The fans just turned it up a notch, turned up a gear, and that was it. It was a really good game of football, end to end. I mean, we could have won it. Stevenage could have won it. I thought we'd won it at the end. And then I thought Stevenage would won it at the end. I thought it was going to be a bit of sweet ending. But no, like you said, the last 20 minutes, I just felt sick. But no, a good point on the board. Definitely 4 out of 6 points over Easter. Couldn't have asked much more.
If you don't mind me asking, how's Conor Jennings been doing for you? Because he's a bit of a legend up at Tranmere for some of his antics in the playoffs for us. So.
Unbelievable. Honestly, we've signed Dan Kemp, who's been great, but arguably he's a close second, Conor Jennings. I mean, arguably you could look at the contributions and you could say, yeah, he scored, 2 goals, I think it is. It doesn't matter.
He's done it under Aston before as well.
Port
Vale.
Macclesfield, yeah.
But honestly, he just graphs and graphs. Honestly, he never stops from minute 1 to the last second of the game.
You wouldn't think he was a bloke who's been through meningitis and cancer as well, would you?
Exactly,
I mean,
no,
he's
absolutely
been
not.
hospitalised twice in his career, so
Just down to earth, humble, and he's here for the right reasons. He wants to do his bit. He wants to help us stay up, and it's been an absolute whirlwind of a signing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, coming to you, Ben, on John Askey, is he a bit of an underrated manager? Because, that achievement in terms of leading Macclesfield to the 17-18 National League title over, established Football League names like yourselves and I think Grimsby, anyway, clubs like Tranmere with huge budgets. And then Port Vale getting them to a ninth place finish, I think it was, after a few years of struggle in 1920. And then this year he's at York he got them promoted from the National League North and then was sort of sacked in a really odd way.
Yeah.
And then now he's turning Hartlepool season around and could be the person to keep them up. That's 4 pretty solid achievements. And I'm not going to pretend it's all been plain sailing for Askey through that time because he's had some rough patches. But I look at him as someone that's going to keep a consistent 11. You're going to know what his teams are going to want to try and do. And for a club that's kind of that struggled a little bit, that sort of steady hand, someone who can sort of stabilise things, that's absolutely vital, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think at Macclesfield, they'll probably get the most credit for the year. They obviously won the league. But the year before that, they were playing some brilliant football as well. I think they might have only finished mid-table somewhere. But I remember that season before they won the league, we played up at their place. And we had been winning virtually every game that season, and they beat us 4-2 on that day. And some of the football they were playing then was fantastic. And obviously, then the following year he goes and pips us to the title. And the year after that, I think he kept them up, didn't he? He kept them up in League Two before, unfortunately, Macclesfield kind of.
Yeah, they were so unlucky that year because they had so many off the field problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think where his kind of strengths are, he's going to get the most out of a budget. If I'm going to assume that Hartlepool have one of the lower budgets in the league, and I think he's a perfect kind of fit there because over time, if he's given time in the summer, he'll get some decent footballers in, and they'll probably start playing some really decent football over time. So I think he's a perfect fit for Hartlepool in that, and I wonder if that's why he hasn't kind of been given a chance at I don't know, one of the lower end League One clubs or something. Maybe just because they think he has that limitation, but he's definitely.
Or he's not really a sexy name, is he?
No, he's not.
That's the other thing.
He's done a good job for, as I say, 3 or 4 years at Macclesfield.
But I think the other thing is, like in interviews, I think maybe he undersells himself a little bit because he doesn't come across as like a hugely charismatic. He's just a very calm, sort of straightforward guy. And maybe when it comes to getting attention higher up, that doesn't necessarily translate that well.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right there. And I do think that after they've kind of turned it around now, if they can kind of kick on, then you'll see them finish comfortably mid-table next year, even with kind of a limited budget, because he's really good, like you said, that consistency and creating an identity of football. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the big thing for Hartlepool in terms of whether the club can move forward again, whether that's in League Two next season or the National League, is kind of the ownership situation. A lot of trust in Raj Singh has been eroded over the last couple of years, Adam. So where are you on all that as a Poolie?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, the decision making this year has been catastrophic. It really, really has. And I mean, if we stay up, I mean, he'll gloat and say, well, I made a big decision. I sacked Keith Curl. I brought in John Askey and I give the club a chance. Yeah, but I'm not being off. You had a chance at the beginning of the season to get things right and you haven't. You made a decision to bring in Paul Hartley, not because it was ambition or serious investment, which it wasn't. It was a method to cut costs. Yeah, he won it.
I mean, Hartley had won 2 promotions in 3 seasons in Scotland at the time. Do you not think there's a risk of sort of looking at that decision at the time with the information we now have, as opposed to, because at the time I was actually quite excited about the Paul Hartley appointment?
I mean, I'd give him a chance, and the way he come across in his first interview, he seemingly was coming to the North East with an identity, a style, ideas of how he wanted his Hartlepool team to look. And to be fair, pre-season looked good, but then obviously the first game of the season, we get battered 4-0 away at Walsall. And I think you just kind of knew then that it was going to be a long season. But look, I don't want to discredit or disrespect the Scottish leagues, but I don't really think, for me personally, you can employ someone because they've won a league with again, I don't even know who's won the league with. Is it Dundee and is it?
Oh no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure who he's won the league with. That's my knowledge is a bit.
For me personally, you want to see your football club employ a highly qualified, someone with credentials in the football.
But then, how do you find the gems, though, Adam? If you say if we kind of turn our nose up at the Scottish leagues, how do you then find the next big thing? Because you could just as easily say, "Oh, this guy's a really highly rated coach, but he's only done it at under 23s level. He's not managing senior football." Because proven League Two managers are probably going to be managing in League One. So if you want to, I think it's very difficult to find. You've got to take a chance somewhere down the line if you want to find a low cost but really good option. I think you've got to take a gamble somewhere. And granted, it hasn't paid off with Paul Hartley. Maybe a bit more due diligence would have done it. But I also feel like there's a bit of revisionism in there as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like I say, it is the risk that you take, and I'm pretty sure that had he come in and had success, and we've been up there, then we would have all said, "Oh, bloody hell, what a great appointment that's turned out to be." But as it is, we've brought him in and we didn't win a game. We didn't look like winning a game. We didn't really see any form of idea. We didn't see a style and identity. And as it turned out to be, it's been a huge risk that unfortunately he's backfired on Raj. But unfortunately, I mean, if he's going to be in next season, which I suspect he will, I mean, he's had opportunities to sell the football club, but he hasn't for whatever reason.
You think the interest in the club has been there then, Adam?
I mean, look, I'm not being funny. We know the Americans were interested. We know it was McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds who came knocking for whatever reason.
Imagine if you lost that on there.
Unfortunately, it is what it is. They've won off to Wrexham, and look, the rest is history. The series, the success they're having this year, but decisions have to be right next summer. Askey needs back, and I think he's proved already with the players that he's got this season. I think if you can give him the resources in the summer, assuming we're going to be in the Football League, then I do think that John Askey could have somewhat of a successful season. I'm not necessarily saying promotion or playoffs, but I think he could, start bringing a little bit of maybe a bit of a feel-good factor back to Hartlepool United.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, in terms of the here and now, Adam, because you're obviously very much in a battle with Crawley, possibly Rochdale, but certainly Crawley to finish 22nd. Josh Umira and Dan Kemp are going to be absolutely crucial to your chances, aren't they?
Oh, massively. I mean, Dan, obviously the hat-trick that he got on Good Friday, he's just been an absolute sensation. He really, really has. And the saying football, one of the most dangerous things that you can do is fall in love with lone players. And unfortunately, we're massively in love with Dan Kemp, and it's going to be hard to bring him back next season. I'm pretty sure MK Dons will be keeping close tabs, as will other football clubs. But yeah, Josh, our top goal scorer, Dan in great form, going to be huge. And they've got good games coming up to contribute. Newport on Saturday, Crawley, like we've talked about. Hopefully they can do the job.
Matt, you probably didn't. I don't know if you saw the best of Dan Kemp at Stevenage because he was playing in that 1920 side, but he did score a lovely solo goal at Exeter that season. Did you sort of, are you surprised to see him do as well as he has at Hartlepool? Are you not surprised? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, not particularly. I think Dan's a good player, really. Like, when Dan played for us, I think we got him on loan from West Ham. I think it was at the time back in, because that was as we like to call it, the reprieve year. So that's the year where we got a little bit lucky that season due to a couple of teams going out. But
obviously you're going to win your last 10 if the game hadn't been.
Oh yeah, of course we would have. We'd have got that magic 50 points, Gav. Don't worry about that. I mean, all right, we only had 22, but we still yeah, 28 points better. But no, Dan was a good player. We got him a loan from West Ham at the time, and he was a bit of an unknown quantity, I think, at that time. We'd seen clips of him at West Ham, and he come in. Yeah, I just thought he did really well. I remember the goal at Exeter when he made us go 1-1, and then we let in a goal a minute later. Dan was really good for us, and I felt for Dan that season because I think any good player wouldn't have stood out the way they would have done in a normal side in that team. That team that we had then was a bad team. That I would go on record and say that team that we had that season at Stevenage was probably one of the worst teams in League Two for many, many years. So, he was playing in a side that was a real failed side with more managers than wins, let's say. So, I felt for Dan that season. But no, I'm not surprised he's gone on do the things he's done. He had a good little stint at Leyton Orient after a spell with us. So
Yeah.
no, I'm not surprised at all that he's gone on to do the things that he's done at all. He's a good player. If we go up, maybe Big Steve will be looking. No, I'm joking, but you never know. You never know.
You never know. Adam, I want to bring in Carlisle fan Ross Parkinson at some stage, but I've got a couple more questions on Hartlepool because it's obviously a really intense point of the season. The first one would be sort of throwing it forward a little bit. Do you think that there'll be scope for John Askey and whoever's in charge of recruitment? Possibly he'll have a huge say, I'd imagine. Will there be scope for them to overhaul the squad in the way they want, or will the fact that you offered presumably lots of 2-year contracts to some of the Scottish players coming in the summer mean that he's kind of going to have to work with what he's got a bit more next season?
I hope so, Gav. I mean, there is players who need to be kind of moved on. We know that. Obviously, we've made some bizarre signings. Leon Clark. I mean, on paper, you probably thought, yeah, he could come in for 5-6 months, do a job.
He can't run, though, at this stage of his career, can he? So...
No, it looked like he was towing a caravan. It really did. And the fact that he's left the club already and gone to, I think it's Radcliffe Olympic, I mean, that speaks volumes. And Mika and Jolie, who's obviously gone to another non-league club.
Although, weirdly, I thought Njoli at Gillingham a couple of years ago was actually all right. I thought he might have been okay at League Two, but clearly hasn't worked.
Well, we've saw little glimmers. There's been times where you've watched me thought, yeah, maybe, give it time, give it patience. Things might come together, but sadly, it just hasn't been the case. And unfortunately, I think he's been told more or less that his future's elsewhere. But I mean, Rajsteen goes to the games, he's watching, and hopefully, we've got a new director of football now, Darren Kelly. So,
that's encouraging. Yeah.
So we've made that decision. I'm not sure if Chris Trott, the head of recruitment's still there or not. I think he was moved on, but hopefully, I mean, there's every reason to back the manager, give him the resources to bring in new players. I'm hoping so. It has to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've spoken to both Darren Kelly and John Askey, and what I've noticed is that Darren Kelly's a very talkative fella, and John Askey's very shy and reserved. So I bet when they're having meetings in the office, you've got Darren Kelly being the very bubbly bright one, and John Askey being more quiet. So that'll be an interesting dynamic. But I think in terms of the more immediate stuff, Adam, do you think Hartlepool will stay up? That's my final question to you.
Of course.
He can't go against his side. He can't.
No, I mean, look, if you'd asked me a month or two ago, I'd have said, you know what, I think so, because we didn't look like winning a game, but John Askey's come in and he's having success, with his selections. This whole at the moment bringing people off the bench, and we're having impacts off the bench. We've got good fixtures: Crawley, Newport. I think we've got within us to stay up in the Football League 100%.
Brilliant. Well, let's hope that's the case. Just before we let you go, just talk to us about the HUFC Chat podcast and what you do and where people can find you.
Yeah, so to me and my mate, obviously we do our own thing. It's available on all regular streaming platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google, Acast. Like I say, the whole idea was, to give fans an opportunity, a platform that they can be proud of, a platform they can come on and talk safely about pools without the fear of being judged. But yeah, we put regular content out. We get guests on. Obviously, we try our best to get the occasional player on. That occasional lucrative feature. But yeah, we do.
Do you find it easy to get players on in the current circumstances?
No, I mean, obviously it is quite difficult because obviously we can't just go out and poach. We've got to go through our media man, and obviously at times we're being told at the moment, for whatever reasons, whether the timing, it is hard, but they are fair. They are flexible. They do give us the opportunities to get players on.
Yeah, well, all the best with the podcast. I know you do some great stuff, so make sure everyone who's watching go check out the HUFC Chat podcast, and all the best for the rest of this season and beyond.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Gab. Cheers, gents.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Really appreciate it. Time to bring in our Carlisle United fan, Ross Parkinson. How are you, Ross?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, I appreciate you going to the ground to record this one.
Yeah, I found it when I was messing backstage.
Gone there especially. Talk to us about how you're feeling about Carlisle's promotion chances at the moment.
I honestly don't know. is the honest answer, because if you told me we'd be fourth with 70 points now at the start of this season, I'd have bitten your hand off. But it does feel a little bit like we might be throwing a chance away at the moment. We've done unbelievably well, so I don't want to be overly critical, but there's been a few games where we've dropped points recently where you think, if we got something there, we could have been free and clear, because as Matt knows, Stevenage have dropped points, Northampton have dropped points in recent weeks. So even Stockport have had a little bit of a tiny wobble that seems to have finished now. There's been an opportunity there for someone to sort of pull away with Leyton Orient, and none of us have taken it really. So the next 5 games are key for everyone.
The thing that stands out for me, Ross, is in the first half of the season, we were saying you've had so many injuries. Just imagine how good you'll be when you get practically half the squad back. We've been getting these results with pretty much the same core of 13, 14 players, and we've had kids on the bench. And, we've really had to dig in for certain results, like at Grimsby back in September and things like that. And imagine how good we'll be when all these players get back fit. Second half of the season, you seem to have had a much bigger squad, and yet it's not necessarily translated in better results. And for me, I mean, you'll tell me what you think sort of behind that, but it feels like maybe not having a B team or development squad or whatever you want to call it has kind of cost you a bit, because you've got to then rotate more, and a little bit more management comes into it, and it brings its own challenges, I guess.
No, I think the rotation thing hasn't been a problem. I think even now we've still got a significant amount of injuries. The difference at the start of the season to now is they were pretty well spread across the team. Whereas now we've got Ellis and Back both out. Feeney's out for the season now. So it's all that right-hand side of the defence. In the last 2 games, we had to sub off Back with his season-ending injury, Feeney with the season-ending injury in the first half at Orient, and then Ellis had to get subbed off against Walsall with what looks like a season-ending injury as well.
Was that the Hayden White challenge?
No, that was Armour was fine after that. That was Armour. It was another hamstring, which is about the 12th or 13th hamstring we've had go this season. Ellis has had 2 of them. Back's had 2 of them. Feeney had 1 on against Orient. There's obviously something not quite right there. I think a lot of clubs have had it, but
Northampton and Stevenage have had a lot of bad injury issues in the second half of the season. I think that's probably part of why none of these teams have quite been able to pull away and maybe opened it up a bit more for Stockport.
Yeah, I think Stockport having the squad that they have and the ability to go and do what they can do financially buys you that, and that's why you pay the money that you do. It's why you carry a squad of 26, 27 that they do, give or take, of quality as well, because they're not really relying on kids too much. But to be fair, we haven't either. We've got a really good squad as well, so can't put it all down to that. I think looking at the next few weeks, this next week is really the key one for us. We've got Northampton at home on Saturday, which is a massive game. Both of us got injury
I think you've got to win that if you want to finish above Northampton.
That was going to say. Then on Tuesday night, we've got Stockport at home.
Oh, I didn't realise you had those games back to back. Oh,
and then next Saturday is Barrow away.
Oh my God, what 3 games that is.
Yeah.
So either way there, couldn't it?
Yeah, our remaining 3 home games are Northampton, Stockport and Salford.
Gosh.
And then on top of that, we've got Barrow and Sutton, which are the 2 sort of playoff chasers.
Those could be tricky away games. I mean, neither of those sides are easy to play against. So
it's been a horrible run-in, to be fair. I mean, we've played. I think did we play 8 of the top 10 in the last 8 games of the season, which is just horrendous. But you've got to beat everyone to go up. But if you're serious about going up, you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, what have you made of Carlisle? Because your lot played them quite recently and didn't quite get the result you were hoping for at Brenton Park.
I mean, any game against us at the minute is hard to judge because we're on the beach and we've got a goalkeeper who should be playing 5 divisions lower. So
yeah, I think how I described your team on Good Friday was you had your flip flops on and the keeper had his on the wrong feet.
yeah, I mean, I think in that game we dominated possession, did nothing with it. Carlisle were very nervy right through the game. I think you could kind of feel that atmosphere in the ground as well, because obviously you had this big crowd in. And yeah, I think the team performance was very nervy. And if Kewell hadn't kind of gifted them 2 goals, I don't know how that game would have gone. So I wasn't too surprised to see them draw at Walsall. I mean, those next 2 games are massive for them, aren't they? Because I think if they lose those 2, then never mind top 3, you're kind of looking at the edge of the playoffs.
Well,
So,
Salford, I think Salford getting those late goals at Wimbledon was
Yeah.
quite important, because if they hadn't got those, I would think I'd been happy to draw the line at Mansfield
yeah,
and probably said that it would be the current top 7 in whatever order. But I
Yeah.
think with Salford in it, I think there's 8 teams in the mix, so one really good team's going to
But
miss out.
it's massive 2 games, because anything from kind of 2 wins and you're in the driving seat for top 3, and
Sure.
2 losses and you're fighting for your lives to make the playoffs. I said to Gabbett a few weeks ago after you lost to Gillingham, Paul Simpson made a comment saying something along the lines of the players need to show that they're good enough to finish in the top 7. And I asked Gabbett at the time, was he kind of trying to create a siege mentality, or did he actually think that?
I think just before Ross answers that, I'd just like to say Chris Wilder did this very similar thing. It reminded me, exactly of Chris Wilder back in 2018. I want to say Sheffield United lost at Hull, and he was saying, maybe these players aren't good enough. Maybe we've hit the peak. Maybe we've gone as far as we can with this group of players. Maybe we'll just finish the season quietly, and that'll be us, or words to that effect. And you kind of knew that he didn't quite believe it, but I feel like he was kind of saying that as a form of reverse psychology. I don't know what I'm fascinated to hear what Ross's perspective is on that.
It might be, yeah. I think it might be that. Simo he's a very pragmatic bloke. A bit like I heard you talk about Jalaski before, about just doesn't get too excited, doesn't really get too angry. And Simo's quite similar. He throughout the season, he's reminded the players that we're ahead of schedule. We are. When he came in the summer with his new 3-year deal, it was the 3rd year is us getting, maybe the 2nd year, but probably the 3rd year is us getting promoted, and we are 9 months into a 3-year project. I think there's been a few games. The game after we beat, I can't remember who we got beat by after we played Barrow. It might have been Harrogate after we beat Barrow 5-1. And I think there was an element of just a little bit of complacency at times from some of the players.
Right.
And a little bit of we've done it. We'll roll these teams over. We've dropped points against Crewe, Harrogate, Colchester, I think.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because if I think of Carlisle in the first half of the season, I would say it was the siege mentality. It was battling.
Yeah.
It was the Huntington leadership. It was the Mellish aggression. It was the defending the box when you need to. It was the dealing with 10 injuries and battling through it. It wasn't, we'll just turn up and win comfortably.
Yeah,
And
I don't think we've done it a lot. I just think there's a couple of games where you just think we've just not really turned up.
Yeah.
Right.
Not many. It's been 2 or 3 times this season, which over the course of a League 2 season, you can't really complain at with League 2 players.
I remember bumping into Mickey Mellon once, and he said it in interviews and all sorts as well, but he basically said that in League 2, if the players at any point think they don't need to put 110% in,
Yeah.
and they're going to be found out, because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter which team it is, you're not good enough to, turn up and just win. That goes for Orient, it goes for Forest Green last year, and all these kind of teams. As soon as you stop putting those extra yards in and going through the pain barrier and all that, you're going to get found out.
And
maybe
that as well, by the way, Ben, is the difference between, so Callum Guy and Jordan Gibson, that's the difference for me between those being sort of top half, mid-table League 2 players and top 7 League 2 players, because of the work that's been done on them in terms of being simified, if you like, in terms of the work against the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some. To be fair, I think Beachy's first half of the season had that as well with some of them lads. The work rate was superb, and the work rate generally is superb. We're brilliant defensively and have been all season. Even on this little run we're on, we've conceded 2 goals in 6 games, and this is what we would describe as a blip for our season.
Yeah.
With only 1 win in 6, but we don't concede. We're really solid. Hawley, for all his detractors, I think he's on 17, 18 clean sheets now this season.
Well, he's so big, isn't he? I can imagine him being really good at getting to the far post for things, and then maybe occasionally things swam over under his arm a little bit. Or
not really. No, he's not really flogged many. There's been 2 or 3 that he's been beaten at his near post a couple of times, and the Walsall goal in the FA Cup where he came out of his box and just the bounce beat him, and it was horrendous. If you want to laugh, go back and watch it. But generally, I think where he suffered with our fan base, because he gets a bit of stick from our fan base, he looks super relaxed all the time. So there's been times where something's gone wide, and he knows it's going wide, but it doesn't look like it's going wide from the paddock. So you panic about him that way. But also, the things he's good at are the boring things, like coming for a cross, coming for those things, and not the sort of one-on-one saves that Mark Howard used to make, for example. So Mark Howard was deemed as a really good goalkeeper for most of our fan base, but he never came for a cross. But he saved 7 or 8 one-on-ones in the last few games of the season.
do you think you can get away without someone like Morgan Feeney in defence then, because you've got someone that will come for crosses and be a bit of a dominant goalkeeper?
Yeah. I think the thing we've got this season, we've got 6 very good centre halves and a couple who can fill in. Because you could easily put Ellis or Armour, albeit Ellis is injured now, in that back 3 on the right and the left, and they'd be fine. Huntington kind of marshals it really well. Feeney, although he's the captain, does the same on the right hand side, and John Mellish does what John Mellish does, which is whatever he feels like doing at that particular moment in time. He's the only centre half I've ever known.
Tactical discipline.
I love him. I absolutely love him. He plays football like a 10-year-old. It's absolutely amazing to watch. He's the only centre half I've ever seen who regularly gets ahead of the centre forwards.
Interesting.
If you watch our highlight packages, you'll see several times where John Mellish is the one, like, going onto a through ball. He's plays centre half.
Do you think that allows you to go to almost flip formations in play? Because if John Mellish attacks a header straight away, and then he can almost from there just go into midfield using his momentum, and all of a sudden a 3-5-2 becomes a 4-3-3 because Jordan Gibson might push into the top front 3 and things like that. So you see that flexibility.
What kind of happens is we do become a bit imbalanced, because that left hand side is our best side with Armour and Mellish, because Armour's 7, 8 out of 10 every week, really solid, doesn't really make any mistakes. A little bit boring because of that, because I think he actually suffers because he's so consistent that you just expect it from him. And Mellish just runs past him, and what sort of happens is Huntington and Feeney just become a back 2 and just cover, and they don't really go anywhere. But since Feeney's been out, and in recent weeks anyway, Barkley's come back in, Ben Barkley.
Ooh, interesting. He's versatile as well. He can play midfield or defence.
Yeah, he's so far this season, he's played right centre-back, left centre-back, right back and right wing-back.
I tell you what, he did really well for Accrington Stanley. I remember seeing him once, was because they played with overlapping centre halves, a bit like you've kind of mentioned with Mellish sort of getting forward. He's very good at being the midfielder that just drops in, just kind of becomes an auxiliary defender. So I think
his best position for us has been on the right of the 3, because his passing is remarkably good for a lad we've got on loan.
Yeah.
The problem we might have in the next couple of games is because he's on loan from Stockport, he won't be playing on Tuesday.
I think he's kind of gone under the radar though, because he's had a few injuries, and so actually I think people might have almost forgotten how good he is. So I mean, I don't know if Stockport went up, I don't know if they'd necessarily see him being part. I think I
don't think he's got a future there anyway. I think a lot of this. I think the gist of from when we actually signed him in the summer is that we wanted to sign him, but he's getting too much money at Stockport, so we can't afford him. So I think he's still got another year after this year. So it might
Ah.
be he looks for another loan or another club comes in and
Whether
into that.
Stockport can pay a proportion of his
Yeah,
wages.
pay him up a percentage and we pay the rest or something.
Yeah.
He's one I would definitely look to keep. In fact, all three of the loanees that we've got at the moment.
Kimani Gordon.
No, I was going to say except Kamani Gordon.
Oh, right.
The Robinson from Middlesbrough's come in on a bit of a sort of try before you buy basis. Not had a lot of game time, but looks bright with what he has got. McCalmont's been excellent. And another one who,
a couple of years ago, Calmont was sort of talked about as an heir to Calvin Phillips's throne at Leeds. So, I mean, it's not a surprise that he's doing well in League Two.
Well, the rumour has it that this loan was a bit of a, like, if he likes it and you like him, you can have him, a bit like Ryan Edmondson. We got Ryan Edmondson on a free when really they could have commanded a fee for him. But I think Leeds has got a good culture of a club that I think they're willing to say if the lad spent 10 years here, we're not going to limit his choices.
He's 21 now as well. Ross, so it's like he's probably, if he's playing League Two now, he's probably not going to get.
Not going to play in the Prem.
Yeah. Matt, what did you make of Carlisle? Because I think it was a goalless draw when you went up there in February.
Back then, it was middle of March was the 0-0 draw. So I think really that day for us it was get a result really, because when we when we looked at the fixture list and we saw that we've got Carlisle and Northampton over 2 weeks, it was very simple. Those games get results, and we got 2 draws in both of them. We got two really good points. I think obviously Carlisle are a very good side. At the time when we played them, I think they were the highest scoring team in the league. I think what's quite concerning is they've scored 2 goals in 6. I think that's or something because obviously ours was a 0-0. And I'll be honest, I don't really know why they were dropping Christian Dennis. To be fair, he's class, and I saw for a few games he wasn't starting. They weren't scoring goals, and then he played against Tranmere and scored. So I think that's someone they probably need to play a bit more. I remember when Dennis scored against us in the game at our place as well. I think when you get to this point of the season, you need your strikers, you need your goal scorers to earn you the results. So I certainly think he's someone that should be playing for him. And I think it's proved that when he's not playing, they'll struggle for goals. But look, good side, they're in it. It's great for us to be there and involved in the mix too. I mean, I think oddly, actually, Carlisle's fixtures are a team that we've been looking at really, because we know our fixtures and we've looked at Northampton's, but when we look at Carlisle's, we've got a very tough run in. I mean, as Ross said, they've got Northampton, Stockport back to back. They've got Salford, they've got Sutton. They've got a very, very tough run in. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in those games. But I think it's going to be tight at the end of the season, regardless one way or another. But look, they're a good side, and any given day they can beat anyone. So it'll be interesting to see how they do.
Any thoughts on the Christian Dennis point, Ross?
Yeah, I think when Joey Garner came in, we sort of switched how we played, and we were missing that Joe Garner type of player. But what stopped happening quite quickly with Garner this season is those little free kicks that he wins you, he just wasn't getting them. Refs at this level kind of cottoned on quite quickly to he goes down a little bit easy when the centre half puts 2 arms in his back. And I don't think we were quick enough to sort of go back to Dennis. Once that stopped working, we have done now, and it seems like he's going to give Amari Patrick and Dennis a run to the end of the season.
Is Garner more of a game management type player, someone that you'd want to bring on for the last 10 minutes of a game just to try and...
If Joe Garner wins your free kicks and wins those battles for you, he's brilliant, and he hasn't played badly for us at all. But I think in a season where you've got a lad like Christian Dennis and he's scored 20 goals now this season, you probably just stick with him and go with it, and maybe sacrifice Garner for that run. I think it's an odd one. I would probably stick with Patrick and Dennis at the moment. Patrick was excellent against Tranmere.
It's weird though, because Amari Patrick was brilliant in the second half of last season. This year, he's had flashes like at Hartlepool, but he's not really found the consistency that you want from him. And I actually mean that in a really respectful way, because I know that Amari Patrick at this level has the capacity to hit a 10 out of 10 occasionally, or just put in a brilliant performance. But it just feels like you'd want like a bit more of a consistent 7 from him, and it feels like he's kind of struggled for that.
Yeah, I think if you got a consistent 7 from Amari Patrick, he wouldn't be playing in League Two.
True.
I think that's the thing. He's one of those players. He's got so much ability on the ball. If he was consistent, he'd be League One at a minimum. We've never had a player that can carry the ball as well as Amari Patrick play since maybe Bridges, which is high praise. At pace as well, but he's not. In fairness, he's not a centre forward, and he has been playing centre forward this season again. He is a left winger. He's filling the job in. He's doing in my opinion, he's doing a pretty good job at that. And if you're keeping Ryan Edmondson, Joe Garner out the team, then credit to him. What we do need is more goals from him. His season's been hampered a little bit by a couple of injuries. He missed pre-season. He missed a big chunk at the start of the season, and then he got himself back fit for Hartlepool. Scored a couple of goals in that game and pulled his hamstring in the same game. That was the thing. And then since then, he's come back in the team. He's probably played last 7 or 8 games, I think, off the top of my head. But it's just been a bit of a stop-start season for him. I really rate him, though. He's one I'd really like to keep at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's really frustrating. I mean, Ben, you must be scoffing at the talk of wanting goals, because Tranmere Rovers have really struggled in terms of options at top. But do you think Carlisle are going to make the top 7?
They'll make the top 7, I think, but I think they'll kind of be clinging on in the end, especially with that fixture running. They're going to have to really do something to get into that top 3 spot, because I can't see Stockport dropping many points. I think even if Carlisle go and beat Stockport, they'll probably win the other 4 games. So, I think...
You think it's Stockport and one other for automatic?
Yeah, Stockport plus 1.
You've been on Stockport all season.
Yeah, and I think now they're in there, that's kind of it, really. Okay. I know they've got potentially a couple tricky games. They've got Gillingham on Saturday, and they've got Orient in a few weeks. But by the time they play Orient will have won the league. So that's probably quite a good game, actually, to have. And they've got so many winners in that squad, and on the in the dugout with the manager and the assistant, that I can't see them dropping out the top 3. So really, you're looking at the teams below. Can they finish ahead of Northampton?
Yeah,
like that game for Carlisle. Sorry.
I think Northampton are catchable because they're not in prime condition squad-wide. Probably same with Stevenage and Carlisle, to be honest. I think there's question marks over all the teams in the mix there.
Yeah, it's whether Bradford, with that game in hand, can actually sneak in.
I've questioned Bradford all season, but they don't have like an injury crisis at the moment, and that could be their trump card.
When you've got a bloke scoring a ton of goals. I said a while back that I thought if they got in the playoffs, they would win the playoffs because they have that goal scorer.
And the goalkeeper as well.
Yeah, they've got probably one of the second best keeper in the league, maybe. I think Stockport plus 1. I wouldn't like to call who the 1 was at the minute.
Do you want to call it, Ross?
It hinges on Saturday. I think if we can get 3 points Saturday and take anything off Stockport, we've got a chance. I think if we don't beat Northampton, I think we're going to struggle to get in that top 3. Because we're going to have to take points off someone up there. And that's
great opportunity for Stevenage, Matt, because Northampton playing Carlisle. If you can do the business against Wimbledon, that gives you a real leg up, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, this is the week for us because we've been saying for a long time that Carlisle have got Northampton and Stockport back to back, and on the same week we've got Wimbledon and Doncaster at home. So I think for us, this is win those 2 games, and I think we'll do it. I really do, because I'm not sure how those games are going to go with Carlisle, Northampton, and Stockport, Carlisle. They're such big games, and yeah, do you know what? We've got a little bit lucky there with those teams playing each other, which sometimes you need when you get promoted. So, yeah, look, it's a massive week for us. If we win both games, we'll be on 76 points, and we'll still have 4 to play with the game in hand. So,
do you know what, Matt? This League Two season feels a bit like, you know, those kind of Swedish drama box sets where you think the next one's going to be the crucial one that really decides it, then the next one, and then the next one.
For God's sake!
And it feels like we're saying that every week, but like this feels like a real pivotal point, because there's a bit of nerves at Stevenage, you know, 3 wins in 13 and all the sort of trepidation that comes with that. But you get the right side of this next week, you could be 5 points clear. Well,
this is the thing, right, Gab? So, I mean, first of all, again, it's just ridiculous that I'm sitting here saying that we're involved in it. I mean, just absolutely absurd as a Stevenage fan, of course. But I think for us, I'm going to be honest, I think we've got really lucky, because we've won 3 in 13 and neither other team have been able to. I mean, really, if Northampton and Carlisle got the wins they should have done, we'd probably be about 9 points behind. Really, but we're not. We're level, and I think with 6 to go, we've got some of the injuries back. So I think we'll do it. It's going to be so tight. It's going to be so close. And I think before I was saying it won't probably go down to the final day, but I think it might. I think it actually might go to the final day. So look, it's going to be exciting. I'm with Ben. I think Stockport will make it. So I think it's one other spot. I think it'll be us, Northampton or Carlisle. And again, as Ben says, don't rule out Bradford. Everyone's forgetting Bradford. They're only 2 points off us and Carlisle and third. So keep an eye on him. I don't think Bradford are the best of the bunch, but they've got Andy Cook, and look, the guy nearly scored 30 goals. So
I mean, in high pressure moments, that clinical edge could be but then, I mean, I think we talk about Stockport and one other, but then you look at it, Stockport are level on points with Carlisle. They lose to Carlisle on Tuesday, depending on what the results are here. We could be talking about a completely different state of play when we record next Thursday. So I think I do agree with you, Matt. I think it really is going to go right down to the oh my God, I actually can't wait to see it.
Literally, we sit here every. I think it's a bit different for us, because obviously you've got some big sides around us, you know, your Carlisle's, your Northamptons, your Stockports. Well, maybe not Stockport, because obviously they come back into the league, but your Carlisle's,
historically, they're second tier,
Well, yeah, true. And your Bradfords, I think they almost, they've been in these positions before. We haven't. So it's kind of like, it's a bit new to us. We're kind of in this position. We don't really know how to go it, because as a support base, we've never competed for the automatics in this division before. So, look, it's very exciting for us. It'll be our greatest achievement if we do it. But I think you're right. I think it's one of these things where you just can't predict. I think if I had to be a betting man, this time next week, going into next weekend, you might have a little bit more of a clear idea of it. Like, for example, this time next week, it might not be between 4 teams. It might be between just 2. I think you'll have a little bit more of an idea of what's going on. But, oh, God, it's going to be nerve-wracking to watch,
Absolutely mental, but can't wait to enjoy the ride. Gents, we've run out of time, but thanks so much for your time this evening. First of all, thanks to our lovely regular guests, Matt Farley from the Stevenage Football Club podcast and Ben Jones of Tranmere Rovers, and to all our special guests from this afternoon, aside from Colchester United, Adam Davison from Hartlepool United, HUFC Chat, and Ross Parkinson, the Carlisle United fan. Ross, all the best to Carlisle for the rest of the season and beyond.
Cheers.
This has been EFL Debate, the League Two podcast. We'll see you again next time.